Hey guys, today we are here on patch 7.2 of Space Marine 2 to talk about the Bulwark class, his best builds for Absolute, and why he's one of the strongest classes in the entire game currently, and really, I would only put him below the Tactical as far as rankings are concerned. Now, the Bulwark has always been a ton of fun to play. He's also one of the most forgiving classes to play for reasons we'll get into shortly, and he's a great class for beginners, really. So the first thing I want to talk about would be his best perk setup. Now, number 1, the Intimidating Aura. A perfectly timed parry deals area of effect damage within a 5-meter radius. Cooldown is 5 seconds. This perk scales with difficulty, so the higher difficulty you're on, the more damage it will do. It simply dumps out an absurd amount of damage in this game. This is one of the best perks in the entire game as far as I am concerned, and fencing weapons really become meta on this guy when you're using this perk, and really I think for like his actual meta setup, this would be the perk to take, and fencing weapons would be the best option with this perk. Now recently they did make a patch where all perfect parry triggers will also trigger on perfect block, though in my experience this is the only exception to that, and I'm pretty sure that's intentional because if perfect block's damage worked with Intimidating Aura on top of it, this guy would actually be broken. Now, the next perk tree I would talk about here, or in the core perk tree, would be Scramble Targeting. If you are surrounded by 5 or more enemies, you take 25% less damage from ranged attacks. Ranged attacks are pretty commonplace in this game, though when you are in melee with a bunch of enemies, enemies who are shooting ranged attacks at you will be less likely to hit you to begin with, so it's not as good as it sounds initially, though it is still pretty amazing, and this also works for your health and armor as far as I know. So I would always take this if you're taking things like Intimidating Aura, because Armor of Contempt, when you block a range attack, enemies within a 10-meter radius take the damage instead. This perk is not really good at all. It pretty much only kills Minoris, and even then, not very effectively. And you can take Shock and Awe. Enemies in a shock area take 25% more damage, but really to get the full effect of this, you'd have to also take Defensive Advantage, which is a perfectly timed parry or block, creates a shock area for 5 seconds, cooldown is 30 seconds, and I would also take emergency countermeasures with that, and this perk is really good as well. We'll get into that in a second. But overall, I think these other 2 perks in this tree, with Armor Reinforcement being one of the best perks in the entire game, especially when we're using a fencing weapon and constantly getting gun strikes off, this is just way over having a defensive advantage that has a 30-second cooldown. And same thing with Steel Within, which is when your health is less than 50%, you take 30% less health damage. This is really, really good, especially if you're using a block weapon and you stack it with Conviction, which is when your armor is fully depleted, you take 25% less health damage for 10 seconds. When you combine all of these together for damage reduction, your damage reduction on this guy when your HP gets low, on top of his 30% bonus starting HP, because if you're unaware, HP in this game gets an increasing damage reduction the lower your total HP gets. So if you have 30% more HP as your starting HP, your effective HP with all of these damage reduction perks on top of having a bonus becomes absurd. And it's pretty much impossible to die even if it looks like your HP is at like 20% on this guy once you have all of these perks functioning. So really, damage reduction on this guy is more effective than most classes. Same thing with Vanguard now with his bonus 15% from the Prestige perk, and he has a ton of other damage reduction perks. I'm pretty sure the Vanguard might actually have more damage reduction perks than the Bulwark does, or at least in some ways he does. But overall, the Bulwark is still better for damage reduction just because of how his starting HP functions and his block works. Now, next here, I would say Advanced Conditioning. Contested health fades 50% more slowly for all squad members. This is just one of the best perks in the game, well, at least one of the best team perks, and this just makes it really easy to get your HP back with things like a power sword attack, or even like your charge shot and your plasma if you're taking plasma, though I do think heavy bolt pistol is currently better. And really the other 2 options here are pretty trash, like Focus Restoration. Every 40 seconds, all squad members automatically restore 1 armor segment. This is just so terrible, to be honest. It's pretty self-explanatory how bad this is. And then here you have Effective Formation. All squad members take 20% less health damage from Extremis and Terminus level enemies. This is also pretty terrible. I don't really know what they're thinking with these other 2. These ones need like some serious buffs to ever be taken over this. I'm pretty sure I can count on like one hand how many times I've ever seen somebody actually take Effective Formation over Advanced Conditioning. Now, next here would be Purity of Purpose. The banner deals damage over time to enemies within its area of effect. This is really deceptively good. This pretty much puts a shock grenade down wherever your banner is, especially even if you're using things like Invigorating Icon, which is the best perk in this tree by far. This is still really good. Like, once you put this down, you will just kill every single Minoris around your banner so casually. It's pretty much like dropping an emergency countermeasure. And the other two options here, like rapid regeneration, the banner restores armor 300% faster, but duration is reduced to 10 seconds. I mean, the longer time your banner is out, the better, especially with how the armor works in this game, where if you're fighting anything in melee attacks will always take your armor off no matter how much damage the single instance of the melee attack will do. It will always take a full bar of your armor off first and then your HP. Ranged attacks will go through your armor, like they'll chunk your armor on top of your HP, but any melee hit coming for you will always take armor off first, even if you have, like, you know, a sliver of armor. So anything that gives you more armor for longer is better in this game, in my opinion. And things like Focus Strength, Shield Bash knocks enemies back and makes them lose control for a longer period of time. Shield Bash is really bad in this game and really breaks the flow of the Bulwark's combat in general. And also the other perk here, which I should mention, is Forward Momentum. After a Shield Bash, melee damage increases by 30% for 10 seconds. This was bugged as far as I know, and it might still be bugged, and if it's not, Shield Bash is still just not worth it over Intimidating Aura. This will do much more damage. So both of these perks are not worth taking in my opinion, and really Purity of Purpose is just the best one in this tree. Now, the next tree, Invigorating Icon. When the banner is activated, all squad members regain maximum contested health, but it recharges 50% slower. This perk is probably like a top 2 perk in the whole game. And maybe the best, honestly, maybe the best. This might be the best perk. The only one that's possibly competing with it is Battle Focus. And Battle Focus, to be like absolutely optimal, needs to have like 2 other perks all functioning in tandem with it. But this one is just busted off rip. So really, this perk is getting reworked. Like, that's just happening. Unfortunately, Invigorating Icon for a lot of people is getting reworked. So if you don't want to take this, this is still definitely the meta pick, but if you don't want to take this, you can always just take Glorious Shield. All squad members within the banner's area of effect take 20% less damage, and the banner lasts 20% longer. First of all, I just want to say my personal opinion on this. I think Glorious Shield is a really, really fun perk to use, and it's also a lot healthier for the game in that, like, you're constantly putting down your banner, and like it functions more how I think they intended the Bulwark to work in the first place, which is that he's supposed to be like a beacon for your team to like actually like sit around and defend a banner, but like he really becomes more of like a portable like a medic beacon with Invigorating Icon. Especially now they made it recharge 50% slower, which pretty much just makes this guy like, or like your Bulwark player will just hold their banner forever, and it's just not really like within the spirit of the class, in my opinion. So if you want to like kind of move away from Invigorating Icon because you just don't like it and you want to take Glorious Shield, this is still a super meta build here, and this still works really, really well. Obviously, Invigorating Icon is better because it's broken, and that's why it's getting reworked. So, you know, if you want to move off of it, take Glorious Shield. I think this one's a lot more fun personally, but, you know, you're always free to take Invigorating Icon if you want it. And this is the better perk, obviously. Now, as far as Concussive Force is concerned, Shield Bash deals 200% more damage. This is trash. Like, that's pretty self-explanatory. And these perks here, Rejuvenating Effect. When the banner is activated, it revives incapacitated squad members within its area of effect. I think this is pretty trash. I think this is one of the worst revive perks in the whole game. And also, usually when you plant your banner down, you're going to have an easy time getting up whoever's in your banner's radius anyways. So having an automatic effect for this, I don't think is remotely as valuable as saying all squad members in the banner's area of effect deal 20% more damage, because this is just a lot better. And these 2 perks here, like Purity of Purpose and Inspiration, they both function better with Glorious Shield because, again, your banner lasts 20% longer. And really, most of the revive perks in this game are pretty bad. Revive perks can be pretty good in games, but the only good one in this game is the Bonds of Brotherhood. Reviving a squad member restores them to full health, and they do less for you the better your teammates are. And this one is going to help your good teammates play even better when you put your banner down. So I would just take this all the time. In my opinion, I think this is a much better perk. Some people like this, but I really just think this isn't helping a whole lot. Now, next here will be these signature perks, or maybe I should mention Merciless Resolve. After a Shield Bash, okay, it's bad. Anything that says Shield Bash is bad. That's the takeaway here. Especially like knockdown effects, because of we don't really need that with the signature perks that we'll get into in a second. Now, Emergency Countermeasure. When your armor is fully depleted, a reserve shock grenade automatically detonates at your position. Cooldown is 90 seconds. This is a great perk, but this will also get things like a Ravener off of you in solo, and also things like Lictor, whatever grabs you, really. Like, if this drops, it will take them off of you. It's one of the only things in the entire game that can get a Lictor or Ravener off of you in solo. Now, you pretty much have to take shock and awe if you want like the full benefit out of this, and like you're not losing a ton from scramble targeting. Shock grenades are pretty strong on their own if you want to keep scramble targeting, or for whatever reason you want armor of contempt. Though emergency countermeasure, I would probably just take this with like a full-on shock build if that's really what you want to build into. But overall, I don't think this is super valuable on its own. Excuse me. I do think this is super valuable on its own, and the cooldown also got reduced from 120 seconds to 90 seconds a little while ago. So if you want to take this, pretty good option, but I think it is significantly below the best option, which we'll get into in a second once we get past defensive mastery. A perfectly timed parry or block instantly incapacitates a Majoris or Extremis level enemy. Cooldown is 90 seconds. I think this is the worst perk in this tree because we're parrying all the time, and like half the time when you parry a Majoris, you're going to be running Intimidating Aura, and that Majoris is going to evaporate before your eyes, or the Extremis is going to evaporate before your eyes anyways, with like, what, a 5-second cooldown versus a 90-second cooldown. This is pretty much a worse version of Intimidating Aura, just like in practice, because 90 seconds, dude, you're going to kill like 5 Extremis pretty much if the game actually sent that at you with Intimidating Aura within that time period. So pretty much never take this over like emergency countermeasures or what I think is the best here with Armored Advance. If you have armor remaining, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back. No knockback effects in this game are amazing because the things that actually kill you in this game are usually knockback effects. Not getting interrupted is super valuable, especially for things like gun strikes if you're using a parry weapon. So again, this really functions really well with our entire build, and we get armor back on armor reinforcement to begin with, and our banner. So this guy's a really easy time of pretty much maintaining Armored Advance 24/7. So I would say this is the best perk setup for him currently. You could also take it like this, like these two, but this is what I would personally take. But I know a lot of players like Invigorating Icon because they play with their friends, and they just like to heal for whatever reason. Well, the reason's pretty obvious, because they like to be alive. But, you know, if you want to take it like that, you sure can. I think this is the best setup for this, or this. Now, as far as prestige perks are concerned, his prestige perks are pretty damn good. Auxiliary Reload. Melee kills of Extremis level or higher enemies restore your secondary weapons ammo by 1 magazine. I should say, I do have a whole video on the prestige perks, but I'll put that in like the little corner or something up here. But in case you want me to talk about them again here, I'm going to go over them very briefly. This works really well for your secondary weapon, which is, you know, your heavy bolt pistol or your plasma, because let's be real, these are the two weapons 99% of people are going to be taking, because Neo Volkite is like pretty incredibly mid, and the bolt pistol is pretty incredibly trash currently. And these two weapons have kind of power crept all the other sidearms. But if you want to take those other ones, you can, for whatever reason, if you just want to, like, you know, have fun. I say it like that's a bad thing. If you want to have fun, you can take whatever you want. I want to be clear that I'm not telling you what you have to take in this game. I'm just telling you what I think is optimal for winning. That's all I'm here to talk about, because it's your game. Use whatever you want. Now, as far as the other perks here go, Resilience, Medicae Stims, restore 40% more health. I think this is very good if you're not taking something like Invigorating Icon, but if you are taking Invigorating Icon, it's completely redundant. You just don't need this. And Overcharge, charge attack damage increases by 20%. This counts for anything that has you holding down your melee button, so this also counts for Power Rake, not Power Whirl on the Power Sword. I pretty much always take this now. And the same thing with Powerful Shot, range damage increases by 20%. These are both pretty boring effects, but they're also both really good effects. Having more range damage on a class that has very few instances of increased range damage is really good, and this just helps a lot with things like Plasma Pistol and things like the Heavy Bolt Pistol. Now, Masterful Defense, ability charge restored by 1% for every blocked range attack. This is an incredible perk, pretty much a must-take, and this makes your Invigorating Icon and your banner in general pretty much completely spammable, especially with your Invigorating Icon, because Invigorating Icon, whatever HP you're going to lose from blocking is going to be regained upon planting your banner that you just got back. And if you're fighting something like a Reaper Soul Cannon, like a Soul Reaper Cannon against Chaos, you can put out like 3 banners down in like a minute. So that's pretty absurd. Now, Standard Bearer. When Chapter Banner activates, you become invulnerable to damage for 2 seconds. Now, invulnerability isn't just like you take no damage here. This also means that you're completely immune. Like, you pretty much phase through enemy attacks during this. So it counts as like super knockback resist. This also pretty much guarantees that in those 2 seconds, you can get back all of your Invigorating Icon HP. Though I would say that things like Masterful Defense, like Overcharge, taking these 4 is probably better for you than taking this. If you want to like swap around something here, you could like swap out auxiliary reload for like resilience if you're not taking a big rating icon. But auxiliary reload, if you're playing in groups, this doesn't matter that much. If you're playing by yourself, this helps a lot. And this also helps more with the plasma pistol and the heavy bolt pistol, mainly because the heavy bolt pistol is like magazine based for 14 at max, or 8 if you're taking these versions, and the plasma pistol is percentage based. So you get more back for the plasma pistol, which comes out to like what I think like 10, like 4 shots, maybe more. But overall, I would just say these like 5 up here are the best, and then Standard Bearer is like kind of meh, but you can take an invigorating icon if you really want to, and rally points trash. Chapter Banner additionally removes negative status effects while active. Yeah, it's garbage. I'm just gonna be like, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's garbage. And if you are struggling with negative status effects in this game, you're probably better off taking things that like directly help you the whole time, in my opinion. Now, as far as weapons go, this might be the hottest take I have in this whole video, which is that I think the Power Sword is probably the single best weapon for this build currently, because the Power Sword did recently get buffed, and I think the Fencing Power Sword is the best fencing weapon in the game at the moment. I think, especially on Bulwark, I think it is over the Fencing Chainsword. Fencing Chainsword is quite slow. Same with the Relic block version of the Chainsword. So if you want to go for Chainsword and like a block build, you can definitely take the Artificer one, because the speed and the way that block weapons function, where after you get like one adrenaline charge on perfect block for 30% and then another one for 90%, the bonuses of the block adrenaline rush of the damage increase, those stay for like a second or so after you actually do your big adrenaline rush hit and regain your armor. So having more hits in with the actual chainsword here, it comes out to overall higher DPS on top of just being way better at getting your contested HP back with like swift recovery. But today we're talking about the Power Sword, which I think this is the optimal setup for the Power Sword currently. Now, I kind of go back and forth on Minora Slayer. I made a whole video about this where I said I think Minora Slayer is pretty valuable. That might have been more so in like previous versions of the game, and I may have been like incorrect to say that, because this doesn't actually hit breakpoints on Minora's currently. So like pretty much the same amount of hits as far as I know. I haven't tried it with every single version, but like as far as the fencing one's concerned, it will still take you like 3 hits to kill him even with this. So I really would take this. I don't really think the power restoration for like 100% more contested health is like really valuable on either of these, but it's still more valuable than hitting like 0 breakpoints. Now, as far as Power Fist is concerned, I don't think Power Fist is remotely as good on the actual Bulwark class as it is the Assault, because Assault hits far more breakpoints with all of his perks than the Bulwark does, because the Bulwark can't properly one-shot with this unless you're using like the block version, which kind of goes against our whole game plan with the intimidating aura. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say on the Bulwark class in this video. Really, you can use whatever fencing weapon you want, because fencing weapons and balance weapons are simply carried by intimidating aura. I just think the Power Sword is the best fencing weapon in the game currently, and I think this is the best setup for the Bulwark class at the moment. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hopefully this video helps some people. If you like content like this, subscribe for more. Peace.